Hello and welcome to Leading with Connection. I'm your host, Charlotte Jamison, and kicking off for today's session, in my own words, what does leading with connection mean to me and why do I think it's important? I like to say, connect with yourself in order to connect with others. And so for me, leading with connection really shows that if I'm connected with how I'm feeling, with my true intent for how I want to interact with someone, how I want to show up. And if I can connect with someone genuinely, really care about who they are and what they want to get out of their work, of this relationship, then I think that is leading with connection. And so when I work with people, when I work with leaders, and I see, okay, these are some things that don't help with connection. And it's when a leader is so caught up in their own pressure cooker, in their own level of stress, which, let me just acknowledge, is true for so many leaders. In fact, I would hazard a guess and say every single leader they really have a lot on their shoulders, especially middle management, where they're trying to lead above and trying to lead below. But ineffective leadership is when that level of stress is not managed appropriately, and maybe even the leader is not aware that they are experiencing that level of stress. And then they go into a meeting or they go into a one-on-one with someone, and the ripple effect of that stress is transferred onto that other person. I used to have this leader who would literally be a whirlwind when they came in to the meeting, and they'd be this whirlwind. And then they'd whirlwind back out again, say their things, drop their demands or whatever, and then whirlwind back out again. And the rest of us would be left there thinking, what just happened? What on earth just happened? And we didn't feel a sense of calm or control. It was a sense of panic. And I was not doing my best work. So I think it really matters for your leader to have, or for us as leaders to have, this idea of awareness around where we're at in our nervous system, because when we are not okay, we can elicit a threat response in somebody else. And when somebody is in threat response, they're in protection mode, not connection mode. When we are only focused on all the stresses that we have, we are not in connection mode. And so when we go to talk to someone about meeting their accountabilities, if we are in protection mode, we might come across, even with the best intention, we might actually come across as a threat. And that person might feel defensive, that person might shut down. But if we're able to talk to someone about their accountabilities, about the projects that they're doing, and we are in connection mode, then we're more likely to elicit a connection mode in somebody else. It's called co-regulation. And it's really important in order for us to perform as a team, to be able to come to us and say, I've made a mistake, or what do you think about doing this? It's psychological safety, and that only happens in connection mode. And that's why it's so important to understand the neurobiological approach to leading with connection. It really starts with us and our nervous system. And that's what works, is when the leader is aware, when the leader responds in a way that is respect building. So instead of listening to win, Carolyn Coughlin has a really great way of explaining this idea of active listening. And she says, we can listen to win, which means when somebody comes to us and says things like, I've got this presentation due and I'm really stressed out about it. And as a leader, I go, oh, you'll be fine. Don't worry. You've got this in the bag. That's listening to win. That's not necessarily helpful. When somebody comes to me and says, I've got this presentation, I'm really stressed, and I listen to fix, I would say something like, oh, don't worry, just focus on everyone in their underwear and you'll be fine. Or here are some, jot down your points, in your notes, and then you just go off those points and you'll be fine. You've got this. Again, I think as a leader that I'm helping because I'm trying to fix the situation, but it's not necessarily what that person needs. So Carolyn Coughlin talks about listening to learn. And so when somebody comes to you and says, I've got this presentation, I'm really stressed, listening to learn would look like, where are you feeling that feeling of stress? Is it in your head or is it in your body? And tell me a little bit more about why you feel that way. Help me understand. Okay, tell me more about that. So you're not trying to fix, you're not trying to direct, you're trying to learn about that person and really understand what's going on for them. And so often, that's all we need as humans. We just need someone to listen. We just need someone to know what we're going through. My husband continually tells me, Charlotte, I don't want you to fix this. I just want you to listen because I am a fixer. That is my default. I don't like discomfort in others. I would like everybody to be, happy and well. I've actually made a job out of it. And so I'm a fixer. But it's not necessarily what people need. So making sure that that's something that really works as a leader is carving out that time to really learn and listen. Something else that is really important is compassionate accountability. And that's how do you have conversations with people around keeping them accountable? But how do you have them in a respectful way, in a way that enables them to share what's going on for them? And the research shows that situational behavioral impact framework really does help. And what that looks like is me going to a team member and saying, this is the situation, the way I see it. Okay. This report was due and it's barely done and it's due tomorrow. This is the situation. The behavior that I'm noticing is there's no sense of urgency because I've seen that you're focusing on some other work. So the behavior that I'm noticing is that you are prioritizing other work over this report that's due tomorrow. Can you help me understand what's going on for you? Because I see this impacting our team. If we don't get this report out on time, it's really going to impact the way the business sees the team. And then that allows the person to say, well, you know what, this is the situation. I have another business leader somewhere else saying, I need to do this as a priority. My focus has been yanked over here, and I've actually just forgotten that the report is due tomorrow. Or I'm just thinking that maybe I'll be able to get it done. And the impact is really stressing me out. Okay, so now we have all the data. And when we can have the data, we can have a decent conversation, a compassionate conversation. This doesn't mean that I go, oh, okay, no worries, I understand now, and walk away. This is, okay, how can I help? This is a tricky situation. What do we need to do to ensure that we meet this deadline? And next time, when somebody else pulls you somewhere for another priority, competing priority, let's have a conversation about it. Okay, because I'm here to support you and I want you to come to me. So can we agree that next time this happens that you come to me and we talk it through? And so now let's talk through what are our options? How do we make this work? Compassionate accountability is not letting people off the hook. It is understanding the data and it is working with someone in order to meet the needs of the business, to meet the needs of the person and your team. So they're just some of the things that do work in a leadership capacity. And one practical takeaway that I would suggest leaders think about really taking away is this idea of having a check-in with your people very regularly, because we want to establish a baseline. I once had this fantastic leader who would just grab a baseline of everybody in that morning, purely by just coming in and having a very informal check-in. How are you going, Charlotte? How are you going? What are you working on? Okay, cool. Does it light you up? Does it not? What's going on? Yep. Really simple conversation. And there's not much in it because it happens every morning. So it's not a big deal, and it can sometimes be a continuation on from yesterday. I'm still on this project. Actually, I've got like a deadline of 2 minutes, so I've got to go. And he's like, cool, okay, see ya. When this really helps is because it's a continual, frequent check-in, you can establish, as I said, this baseline. So when something is off for that person, you can really tell. And in this instance, this leader could really tell one day, I was having a really bad day. Personally, I was having a bad day, and I also had some professional challenges as well. And that leader stopped and checked in and said, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I wasn't fine. I was clearly not fine. And they could tell. And so all they did was ask and invite, do you want to go out for a coffee and have a chat? And I did. And we did. And there I was able to, without judgment, share what was going on with my family and share what was going on professionally. And there wasn't even a listen to fix. There wasn't a listen to win. There was a listen to learn. And how is that? And what can I do to support you? And I was able to get on with my work then. I was able to carry on simply because I'd had that connection point. So maybe that's something that you might like to take away, is this idea of, well, how can I regularly check in with people, a pulse check, just so I've got that baseline, so that when something does come up, I can really tell instantly, and it doesn't affect their work, and it doesn't end up affecting the team. Thank you for listening. In the next episode, we will talk to a leader in the industry about what leading with connection means to them and what they've found that has worked and hasn't worked, and what we might be able to take away. See you next time.